We should be live on Facebook, YouTube, OpsLens, and a myriad of other places, Rumble, Getter, places I don't even remember how I programmed to get them in, but they should be in there. Hello, everybody. This is going to be another episode of the Polite Society podcast. We're going to be recording episode 679 here in a few seconds. No guest tonight, but we've got a lot of news and some DGUs to get to. So it will be a little bit of a shorter night tonight. I'm hoping to get out in under an hour, but, you know, we like to talk, so who knows. As we get going, of course, get your comments in. If you comment while we're live and your comment is relevant, we'll get your comment up, get it on the air, and we'll laugh with you or maybe at you, depending on, you know, on the comment. But all right, and just make sure that's, where'd it go? There it is. Bring that down here where I can see it. And we've got check-ins happening already. Jesus Wins, Bird of Michigan's checking in. And I think that means we can, as long as we've got at least one official person commenting, we can, we've got enough people, we can start kicking this thing off. What do you guys think?
Let's go.
All right.
Like fire.
In that case, Masada Yub in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Masada Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hi, and welcome to the Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, October the 16th, 2023. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Rob Morse, and on tonight's show we report about government agencies that keep losing guns, and then where we find them later.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about SIG expanding ammo manufacturing in Arkansas.
I'm Charlie Cook, and we'll talk about a disgruntled car salesman in Texas. So climb aboard,
Strap in,
And hang on.
Episode 679 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. All right, it's Monday night. It's just barely after 7 o'clock in the Central Time Zone, the only time zone that matters. Means it's time for another episode of the Polite Society podcast, as I usually do. Rob, I'm going to go over to you and say, what have you been up to since the last time you've been on the air with us, man?
I'm still a tiny bit sick, but now getting better every day. I'm good enough that I was on Bill Frady's Lock and Load radio show again. I recorded another episode of Self-Defense Gun Stories. I also took my new gun to the range. I love it that the new sights let me be more accurate than the gun shoots. And that means I want to upgrade the barrel and trigger. I'm really liking the new red dot sight. John, what have you been up to?
Well, since we only recorded this past Wednesday, I don't have anything really gun-related to report. However, we did have a long weekend with the grandkids. Picked them up from school in the car rider line, which is kind of a big thrill for them, and went with them to a harvest festival in the little town of Mount Airy, North Carolina. Mount Airy was the hometown of Andy Griffith and was the model for Mayberry. And so both kids and adults had a great time.
Also, if I'm remembering
Charlie?
right, the home of a couple of Mount Airy is also the home of a couple of NASCAR teams.
Could be. And Mount Pilot, which is really Pilot Mountain, we passed it on the way there. So,
all right.
Charlie?
What's up, man?
So I have been teaching some classes, which has been really nice. I've written to my legislators about HD 4607, which is the old 4420, and I told them how bad it is for the lawful gun folks in Massachusetts. Last weekend, I went to the Tommy Gun Warehouse and got to hang out with Rob and Amanda, and
Cool.
that was a really good time. Yes, made some new friends from that gun talk in Philly, and I filmed a show with them. Rob and I had lunch with one of the ladies, and I'm like, look, come sit with us. We're the only people in the VIP room, so come sit with us and talk with us. And so I filmed a show with her and her husband, and they're really cool. And I also filmed another couple shows while I was down there. And then this past weekend, I went and did some trap shooting, which was kind of fun.
Cool.
Paul, yes. It's interesting to me. You know, I used to not think that you had time to think about what you're doing when you're shooting trap. But I'm discovering the more I do it, the more, I don't want to say the more time I have, but the more time I have to think about what I'm doing. Instead of just being like, oh my gosh, there's a target, shoot. You know, now you're like, oh, you know what? If I shoot under the target, I hit them. If I shoot over the target, I don't.
Yes. Yeah, I haven't shot trap, I'm going to say, in 20 years. I used to be pretty decent at it, but almost all my shooting these days is handguns. And that's maybe something I should look at getting back into. Although it's really late to be doing it this year. We're not that far up in the frozen hinterlands up here until we get snow. But anyway. What's been up with Susan and I? I've been rebuilding a studio. You really can't see it behind me because of the green screen, but I started this project last week, finished it up, probably 2 hours ago. I've now got, sitting at the desk I'm at, I've got 3 computers with a 4th I can add. I've got 5 monitors with a 6th one that's permanently attached to the laptop over there. I could run NASA from where I'm at. This is a geek's dream come true where I'm set up at. And I've done enough housekeeping in the studio as I've been rebuilding things that I could actually possibly remove the green screen behind me sometime and wouldn't be embarrassed to show you all what's there. I don't know that I will, but I could. So that's kind of what's going on with me. Just working on the studio and working on some other changes that have been going on in my life that I covered last week and really don't want to go through a lot again today. So I think that's going to do it for what's up with me. Let's do this, guys. I do want to kind of hurry things along. I want to, if we can, I do want to try to get the show in for under an hour today. Let's go off to break, and when we come back, we'll cover the news, and we'll be back with that right after we hear from ACLDN right back after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Massad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Gibbons, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by network president Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
All right, we are back, and so that you don't have to listen to us mumble and fumble through the news, I do have 4 news stories loaded into be read by AI today. The first one really isn't, and guys, we're just going to roundtable this one. Have you been to your local gun store lately? And if so, how are they doing on ammo?
Yes, but I brought my own to the range. I didn't ask them how much is behind the counter.
Since I went out and participated in some futtery this weekend, I spent 50 rounds of shotgun shells. So after I did that, I went to Walmart and bought 200 rounds of shotgun shells.
Okay.
Got to replenish and stock up some more. Honestly, I hate saying, I buy ammo at the WM, but they don't have AR ammo and they don't have handgun ammo, but they had a lot of shotgun ammo and a lot of rifle ammo. This weekend, I'm actually I think I'm going to be doing an event and driving around to some gun stores and buying some ammo. So hopefully they'll have some in stock.
And as for me, I have not been in a local gun store to buy ammo lately. And what I've been trying to get a hold of is kind of weird stuff anyway, which I know they wouldn't keep. Stuff that I want to take to Africa. So I've been buying more reloading supplies, sometimes at auctions. I do see prices going, Sometimes I think in an auction you see people paying what I consider ridiculous prices. But even still, I've been checking AmmoSeek, and sometimes prices are down, sometimes they're not. I have not checked since Israel was invaded. So,
well, and there's a note in the news that Biden has told manufacturing plants that sell to the military they could not sell to civilians, which is going to be a real pain in the backside for police departments because all police departments are staffed by civilians.
Yeah, the Lake City plant, which is really the only one that's under consideration, is run by Winchester now. Used to be run by Federal, but it wasn't an issue during supplying stuff to Ukraine because they use 7.62 by 39, whereas the Israelis use the good old 5.56 by 45 M16 ammo.
Sure. All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's get into our first story. We've got Davis, who is the what they've named the voice. I've got two voices, one for news, one for DGUs. Davis is going to read us news, and here's the first story.
SIG expands ammunition manufacturing in Arkansas. Sig Sauer said Friday it will expand its ammunition manufacturing plant in Jacksonville, with plans to add more than 600 jobs over the next 5 years and invest $150 million in the project. The expansion will add various ammunition production components to support multiple contracts with the U.S. Department of Defense, Sig Sauer said in a release. As part of the move, the company's ammunition campus will add a new 250,000 square foot building to house part of these manufacturing processes. Sig Sauer's operation in Jacksonville currently employs just shy of 350 people. It plans to add 625 jobs as part of the new manufacturing additions. The company expanded its plant in June of 2021 to make room for more production, and at the time a company executive said Sig Sauer hoped to continue to add to its Arkansas operations. New Hampshire-based Sig Sauer, which makes firearms, ammunition, and accessories, centralized its ammunition production at a new plant in Jacksonville in 2016. The plant makes small arms ammunition for civilian, law enforcement, and military markets worldwide. The Jacksonville plant also makes pistol night sights and sits on more than 60 acres. Nationwide, Sig Sauer employs more than 3,200 people. Here in Arkansas, We love welcoming business expansions almost as much as we love defending the Second Amendment. Sig Sauer's expansion to their facility in Jacksonville does both, creating jobs and reaffirming Arkansans' right to keep and bear arms. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders said in a statement, in 2016, then-Governor Asa Hutchinson helped recruit Sig Sauer to bring its plant to Arkansas and was the first Arkansas governor to visit the shooting. Hunting and Outdoor Trade Show in Las Vegas. Commonly called SHOT Show, the event is an annual, industry-only event sponsored by the National Shooting Sports Foundation, a trade association for the firearms, ammunition, shooting, and hunting industry.
This is good news, and guys, and maybe Amanda would be a better person to ask this because I know she's really familiar with this, but aren't, and John, I think you might know too, aren't almost all pistol primers and a lot of rifle primers, there are almost no primers made in the United States anymore. Am I correct in remembering that?
No. Powder is rare in the U.S., but primers it's mostly controlled by federal CCI. I mean, they make their own primers in the U.S. And I did speak to a company at this in January at the SHOT Show that was actually building a plant. They make equipment for primer plants. And they just installed one, and he was real proud about it in Ukraine. But they were building another plant, or it was under construction, just outside of Little Rock, which is basically Remington's in the area. Jacksonville is a suburb, it seems, of Little Rock, where SIG is located. So, yeah.
The only thing in Arkansas that is not a suburb of Little Rock is pretty much Memphis.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Sort of. But, okay, the comment, this new plant's going to be dedicated to the military so it won't affect civilians is absolutely wrong, because this SIG is already making some ammunition for the military. If they're putting in a new plant that's dedicated to the military, then the other plants where the military ammunition was being made can now dedicate more effort to civilians. So great. There's no such thing, if you will, as a bad ammunition plant. If there's more for someone else, it also means there's more for us. John, what do you think?
That brings up an interesting point. The military is trying to move from the 5.56 to a 6.8 rifle as their future weapon, and SIG, I know, is competing to get the contract to produce that ammo. At least East, and it's not like a 6.8 SPC or 6.8 Legend. It's something entirely new.
Okay. Well,
Interesting.
Making the rifle, though, is probably a different plant. Although, if they get that, there's still warehouse space that they'll need. So I understand that.
Let me.
One other thing I was going to add, it was announced today, and I'll talk about it more under the blog post, that Vista Outdoor, which owns all Federal, Remington, CCI, Spear, Alliant Powder, etc., they had put all those companies in what they call the Sporting Products Group, and they were going to spin that off as a separate company. They announced this morning that they sold it to what's called the Czechoslovak Group, which is a Czechoslovak.
We've got that coming up in news yet. Yeah.
Okay, never mind. We'll talk about that in the news. Okay.
Give me just 1 second here. I'm looking for. I just got a comment I'm trying to chase down the veracity of. Just a second here. Okay, this is breaking. This hit earlier today. Supreme Court just handed gun groups a rare defeat. The Supreme Court handed down a brief order on Tuesday that will prevent violent criminals and other individuals who are not allowed to have guns from evading a federal law requiring background checks for gun buyers. The vote was 5-4, with Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Amy Coney Barrett joining the court's 3 Democratic appointees. The case, known as Garland versus Vanderstock, concerns so-called ghost guns, dismantled firearms that are sold in ready-to-assemble kits. I'm not going to read the whole story, because this is off of Vox.com, and if I were to read it, we would be here well past the 1 hour that I want to get the show in. Let me get some comments in here real quick. Starting with Jesus Wins, Bird of Michigan, Reloaders Rule. And Dana says, get the show in under an hour. What's the over-under on that?
I'm taking the over.
And Warsaw Patriot says, it wouldn't surprise me if most of our primers are made out of communist China. And I think I spoke out of turn on that one. All right, let's go ahead.
Can I go back to
John.
The Garland Vanderstock? I'm reading the order in the pending case, and all they're saying is that they vacated the injunction, and the injunction back to the district court. So it's going back to be decided.
Supreme Court is still going to be deciding it.
Yes.
Okay.
All they did was vacate the injunction. Ghost guns, per se, are still going to have to be serialized, whatever, but the case goes back to the Fifth Circuit for them to actually go through and hear the case now.
Oh, okay. Well, in the Fifth Circuit, let's be honest, there isn't a more freedom-friendly circuit right now than the Fifth Circuit.
True.
Right.
If we got to choose, it's the mirror, if you will, the mirror image of the Ninth.
Yes.
It's not in the news. I'm going to head off on a tangent. It's amazing to me that a case that was returned by the Supreme Court, where they said, you got this wrong, go fix it, and then the Ninth Circuit hands it back the same way. God, that's hubris. I'm thinking of Duncan v. Bonta.
That's also like, I'm bending over the chair, Dad. Have you got your belt out yet?
Really?
They're going to get spanked.
Not soon enough. Well, the Supremes let the Judge Benitez put up an injunction. The Ninth overturned the injunction, and the Supremes passed on addressing whether they wanted to see it yet. Wow, I don't know what to say.
All right, let's go ahead, and we're going to get to our next news story here, and here we go.
Vista Outdoor had been planning to spin off their sporting products group as an independent business. The sporting products group included Federal, Remington, CCI, Spear, Alliant Powder, Heavy Shot, and Estate Cartridges. They had adopted the name the Kinetic Group for the spun-off company. The spin-off was to happen in the fourth quarter of this year. That was announced at the beginning of September. Between then and this morning, things changed. As announced this morning that Vista Outdoor would sell the Sporting Products Group, also known as the Kinetic Group, to Czechoslovak Group for $1.91 billion in an all-cash transaction. Czechoslovak Group, CSG, is a Czech-based holding company with over 30 companies and 10,000 employees worldwide. CSG has a number of divisions including CSG Aerospace, CSG Defense, CSG Mobility, which makes Tatra trucks, and CSG Ammo. This last division includes ammo companies Fiocchi, Italy-based Baschieri Amp, Pelagri, and UK-based Lylevalle Express. Fiocchi has plants in Italy, the UK, and in Ozark, Missouri, which is just outside of Springfield. Jason Vanderbrink will remain as CEO of the sporting products business under CSG, and it will remain headquartered in Anoka, Minnesota. The leadership team of this business will include Al Kerfeld, CFO, Jeff Ehrich, General Counsel and Corporate Secretary, and Mark Kowalski, Controller and Chief Accounting Officer. The current CFO of Vista Outdoor will remain with Vista, which is being renamed Revelyst. Gary MacArthur, interim CEO of Vista Outdoor, noted that the previous plans to spin off the sporting products business allowed them to pivot easily to making it a sale rather than a spin-off. He added that he thought a sale would provide a better way to maximize value for shareholders. Jason Vanderbrink added, "We are confident that CSG is a great home for our leading ammunition brands," said Jason Vanderbrink, CEO of Sporting Products. "The company is fully committed to our iconic American brands and expanding our legacy of U.S. manufacturing, support for military and law enforcement customers, and investments in conservation and our hunting and shooting heritage. We are excited to work closely with the CSG team as we enter this next phase and position our brands for long-term success." McCall Strand, CEO and 100% owner of CSG, said he was looking forward to partnering with Vanderbrink and his leadership team. He went on to add that he and CSG were committed to expanding their legacy of U.S. manufacturing and providing resources to accelerate their growth. An investor call concerning the sale was held at 9 a.m. Eastern Time this morning.
All right. I got to say, John, as I was, when I do this to load into AI, I have to read these really quickly. And I seen the last name Kowalski, and I was skimming very rapidly. I'm like, Ken Kowalski? How'd he get in there? Ken being,
exactly,
of course, a good friend and a former podcaster. Those of you who've been listening to podcasts for several years know of Ken. But yeah, it's I see this as a neither good news nor bad news, just news, and I don't think we're not going to notice anything really on the civilian side of this, other than ammunition flows as normal. I'm going to keep buying. Spear Gold Dot is my go-to defensive ammo. I don't plan on changing that.
I don't think these companies are likely to move the factories.
No.
And short of that, okay, the CFO changed. Do we care? I'm not sure.
Actually, the CEO of the Sporting Products Group, Kinetic Group, is going to remain the same under the CSG ownership. What I see as one advantage that I just thought of as I was listening to the story, when they were going to be spun off, they were going to be a publicly traded company. Now that they're bought by CSG Group, which is 100% owned by one person, they don't have to worry about short-term results. They don't have to worry about satisfying shareholders. They only have to worry about keeping the owner happy, and it gives them a lot more flexibility.
I wonder, John, are they more immune to political pressure, at least on this side of the pond?
Yes, that's exactly correct. And you're seeing the Czechs getting involved in the U.S. firearms industry. In addition to this, I mean, the obvious is CZ, which bought Colt, and
Right.
is helping actually reinvigorate them, which is great. We talked about earlier, Paul was mentioning primers being made overseas, and there are, but one of the other things that is made overseas a lot of in the Czech Republic is powder. what you're going to need for reloading. So don't know whether or not CSG makes any, but there are companies in the Czech Republic or Slovakia that do make powder that you see in the U.S. under, whether it's Alliant, you see some stuff, and you also see what's called Shooter's World ammo or Shooter's World powder, which is usually made in the Czech Republic.
All right.
Yeah. By the way, John, I just did a Google search. When I look where primers are made, I see Philippines, the Czech Republic, Italy, and Russia. I don't see companies manufacturing them in the U.S. Doesn't mean there aren't one, but they're not the largest companies, which surprised to me.
I think the major companies make them for themselves, and if they have excess, then they sell them to reloaders or to other companies. It's your Black Hills Ammo, your Corbon that are going to have a harder time than Remington and Federal or Winchester.
When I first heard the story, I was a little concerned that all of the ammo companies were going to be owned by one company, which, freaked me out a little bit. But when you said that if they're going to be publicly traded, then they're not going to have one leader or one boss. So I think that's a little bit of a relief.
No, they're not going to be publicly traded.
Oh, they're not going to be publicly traded. Sorry, they got that.
They went from being publicly traded in the spinoff to not being publicly, which gives them insulation, much more political insulation, at least in the U.S. You can't have people coming and trying to do a shareholder question saying, why aren't you Ruger and Smith & Wesson have to deal with this all the time, every year, usually by groups of nuns from somewhere out west saying you need to, do what the UN says about human rights and how dare you sell those evil assault weapons, et cetera, et cetera.
Gotcha.
It's enough to make me to believe in the Reformation.
I will say this. Having one boss is infinitely better than having multiple bosses. Ask me how I know, but I won't get into it on the air. So don't ask me how I know. Let's go on to the third story we got here. And because I am trying to we're 33 minutes into going to be more than 1 hour show. Hang on. Third story. Here we go.
Weeks ago, we talked about the Philadelphia Sheriff's Department that lost several dozen of their firearms. That sounds so familiar because the U.S. Army has the same problem on a massive scale. Remember that we left $7 billion in military equipment in Afghanistan. It looks like Hamas terrorists that attacked Israel were armed with U.S.-made military arms. We know that some of the hundreds of thousands of small arms abandoned to Taliban terrorists in 2021 have been smuggled to Hamas terrorists. Now we're seeing them murdering innocent men, women, and children last week.
Yeah. I've seen. I am very involved in social media. More specifically, I'm involved in Facebook. I'm one of the older people that I don't get into Instagram. I don't get into a lot of the
President Biden has been myopically focused on stripping gun rights from law-abiding American citizens. Meanwhile, his own failed policies, coupled with diplomatic mistakes, are proving deadly to our allies.
Okay, well, apparently he wasn't done talking. That was a long pause, though. What I was trying to say is there's a meme going around, and it shows missiles going off one way and U.S.-funded missiles, and missiles going back towards where the first missiles are coming, U.S.-funded missiles. And you know what? We've got money on both sides of this. At least the small arms, I very much believe that Hamas has, could very well be some of the same stuff we left behind when Biden said, yeah, we're out Tuesday. Goodbye.
Yeah, I read something about that from Larry Keane from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and I really don't think that he would have said anything like that if he didn't have evidence.
Yeah.
I have to say,
Go ahead.
I was going to say when we were doing the teaser on this, I thought it was the story was going to be the firearms that were stolen that Rob Pincus was sending to Patrick Collins. That's where I thought this was going.
I felt bad for that. Yeah.
Oh my God, Patrick's had a horrible time with this. He lost a few $1,000s worth of ammunition. I think it was last year, but I'm not trying to sidetrack.
Yeah.
Sure you are.
And I'm gonna sidetrack us in saying that it's the government regulations that are making this so horrifically difficult. If it weren't such a big deal, they didn't have to jump through so damn many hoops to get firearms, there wouldn't be a black market. There wouldn't be the temptation for somebody working for FedEx or UPS, and let's face it, that's where 90% of the firearms are shipped through is FedEx or UPS, to break into boxes and relieve the store that's going to be getting it of their product.
I think even worse this time was they were being shipped because you can do it if it's dealer to dealer through the Postal Service. So they were semi-government employees stealing this.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Yeah, government employees stealing. Who'd have thought?
Right.
All right, let's get to our last news story, and here we go.
Self-defense works to stop Hamas terrorists' early action by 25-year-old Israeli woman saves kibbutz. Enbel Lieberman is the security director of a kibbutz in southern Israel. There are about 700 settlers who farm 20,000 acres. Monday morning, she heard the sounds of rifle fire and grenades going off in the distance. She decided that was unusual compared to the usual rocket attacks they get from Gaza. She woke up her emergency squad. She opened the armory. She divided her squads and assigned them to positions over gates and fences. She had a unit in reserve. They caught the attacking Palestinians off guard and killed them. Lieberman killed 5 terrorists on her own, while her security team took out at least 20 more over a period of 4 hours. Together, they turned Nir Am into an impenetrable fortress, while nearby kibbutzim suffered heavy losses.
I'm going to look at this one as a DGU. It's unfortunate they have to have an armory. It's unfortunate they have to gather somewhere, get their weaponry, and then go out to defend their settlement, their village, or whatever you want to call it. Their kibbutz, I think is the term. It's unfortunate they had to do that, but it looks like they were on the ball enough that they were able, at least for this one kibbutz, to save a lot of lives and to repel the attack. Rob, you're up here in show notes, man.
Right. The great news is they kept the attackers outside the compound for about 4 hours. At that point, the military finally showed up and then pinned the attackers. They could neither advance nor retreat, and they were killed. I think, as you pointed out, their strategic decisions were driven by domestic politics and were horrible. So they had a single point of failure. This woman who was their security director. They had a single point where the arms were kept and ammunition. And that's driven by Israeli politicians because years ago, an armed civilian killed an Israeli politician. So they disarmed a country, and now they've paid for it with thousands and thousands of lives. I hope we, both Israelis and Yanks, learn from their failures and their successes. John, what do you think?
Well, this makes me think about the story about the parents who were armed. And I think the only reason they were allowed to be armed is that they were both officers armed with pistols who killed 7 terrorists but died in the act of doing it, but saved their 10-month-old twins. And I always thought it was such a sad thing. And I also listened to Tom Gresham from last Sunday, and as he noted, imagine what people in the kibbutzes could have done if they had been armed with ARs and were shooting from a high point, like the roofs of the house, at all these terrorists that were running across an open field towards them outside the gates. They could have held them off at a further distance. Just one person with an AR and enough rounds can do a lot of damage to terrorists, to criminals, and criminals as well. Charlie?
I was just reading your comment there, and I thought it said, imagine what they could do with a high point.
Yeah.
but I must admit that.
Even like, then, that would have been better than nothing.
Right, exactly. I thought what was interesting with the story is they talked about there was more than an unusual amount of rocket attacks from Gaza. What is the usual amount of rocket attacks from Gaza? That's a little concerning to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
50, 100, I don't know.
Let me get this comment in here from Spartan 6. He says, saddest part is that after this war, the government will probably take privately owned weapons from the citizens again. Yeah. And I'm not going to say, I'm not going to say he's wrong there. And he says, and the citizens will let it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Warsaw Patriot a little bit before that said, before drug cartels were arms smugglers, illegal arms dealers. Yeah. You'd have to go back. I mean, honestly, you'd have to go back to the 1930s because that's the first time that restrictions started coming up. I don't know. I'm short train of thought tonight, and train got derailed. John, what's your thoughts, man? I see you typing in show notes.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you got all those dead terrorists armed. If before the police arrived, people in the kibbutz might just happen to have picked up an AK or an AR and whatever ammunition was there, I would have hidden it and just kept it and just kept my mouth shut. So the next time, and there's going to be a next time, Hamas comes across the border, you at least could have better preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob, great comment. Go, bud.
I think
Rob, you're muted.
I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
I've been in local schools that had secure communications. Rather than have a phone to every classroom or a PA system, they realized there may be messages we don't want to announce to the students, or if we do, we'll give them to the school member in the class, and then they can disseminate what they think their students need to hear. Why wasn't that common in this kibbutz? Why was this defender running door to door to get her security team? To me, that just seems like, what, didn't we get over that in the 1760s, 1770s? Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. In the 1940s, we still had these cranks where if there was an air raid coming in, somebody ran and
turned the siren, right?
Yeah, turned the siren, turned the crank for the siren.
You're funny.
I've seen those.
All right, let's Let's go ahead, guys. We're going to jump to break. When we come back, we've got more news, but we'll get to it with the Wednesday show. And by the way, we are, for the Bullet, it is now Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday for the Bullet. And you know the person that's appearing with me on Wednesday this week. He's right here. Rob's going to be joining me Wednesday for the Bullet this week. We're going to step aside to break now. We'll get into our defensive gun use segment next. First, we're going to hear from the Complete Combatant. We'll be right back right after this. This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off. All right, as we begin, these discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The defensive gun use segment is intended as entertainment and information only, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. Our first DGU comes to us from Fayette County, Georgia. Here we go.
Fayette County, Georgia. Just before 2 in the morning, Fayette County 911 got a call from a resident in the north part of the county of a possible home intruder. Deputies were minutes away, and you know what is said about seconds counting. The homeowner armed himself, and he confronted the intruder who had broken into the basement. The intruder was armed with a knife. The homeowner issued a warning to the intruder before he shot him. He then retreated up the stairs to the top on the second floor. This was to better protect his family at the top of the staircase. There, he took his stand as the subject made his way up to the second floor. He made the comment, something to the effect of, "You're going to have to kill me," when the resident fired a second shot. That was about the time the deputies got there. From what we can tell, he was coming down the stairway with the second gunshot wound, said Fayette County Sheriff Barry Babb. At that point, they actually still struggled with him as they took him into custody. The suspect was taken to a local hospital with 2 more holes than he entered the home with. Investigators were able to tie the man to a deadly home invasion which occurred 6 days earlier in Ohio. A red Ford 150 with changed license plates found near the home. The truck was the one that the fugitive had carjacked from Kettering, Ohio.
According to Columbus Police Deputy Chief Smith Weir, the fugitive had no known connection with Georgia.
That home invasion, which was a random attack, left 77-year-old Emily Foster dead from stab wounds. Because she lived only blocks from the Ohio State campus, and it was a game day, police were on that scene in minutes. Nonetheless, he escaped until shot in Georgia by the Fayette County homeowner. The attacker had been released from the Franklin County Jail the night prior to the stabbing. He had pleaded guilty to 2 counts of felony fleeing on aggravated assault charges. He was on parole hold, but that ended, and he began serving time on a pending felony assault charge. He has an extensive rap sheet, mostly around Columbus and up and down the I-75 corridor, from Detroit all the way now down to Georgia.
Okay, well, my first obvious comment is apparently our AI helpers are tag teaming on this one. But John, you're up first for a comment about this one in the show notes. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, I've got to give kudos to the homeowner who retreated to a superior position at the top of the stairs. Stairs are shot funnels. He was in a great place, and that was good. And I obviously helped him out. Rob?
Yeah, as I read the story, the homeowner first went down the stairs to say, who's there? And he sees an intruder that doesn't belong there. The intruder's armed with a knife, and he goes, whoops, this is a gun problem, and I don't have one. At which point he goes back upstairs, gets his gun, and barricades on the stairs. So great recovery, bad first move. It's not best practice.
I don't know. Okay. To me, it sounded like he had already been armed when he confronted him and shot him the first time down in the basement.
And so
he did shoot him, but when I read the story, he went there. Let's just say the homeowner went and asked a question that he wasn't prepared for the answer.
Yeah.
And you know how your instructor said, you don't know who's downstairs? It could be an armed murderer. Don't just go chase. Well, dang it. In this case, it was. Oh, my goodness.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
My instructor wasn't making that stuff up after all.
I'm a fan of barricade, protect what you have to protect. Barricade, and when they come through that final barrier, Katie, bar the door. But yeah, defend what you have to defend, and set up in the last, as deeply as you can, and verbal warnings are great. Although I just let them have your stuff. Let them get what they want to get out. If they keep coming towards you and the people you need to defend, yeah, when they come through that last barrier, then it's time to go to work. Charlie, you've been real quiet. You got any thoughts, man?
I do. The attacker had been released from the Franklin County Jail the night prior to the stabbing. It seems like this is a judicial system that is failing from Detroit all the way down to Georgia. We say all the time that these people, these are the people that are out committing crime. These are the people that are out committing crime. Excuse me. They don't learn their lesson. They get out. They keep committing crimes. They get out. They keep committing crimes. They get out. They keep committing crimes. And this is certainly an example of that.
Oh yeah. All right. We ready to go to the second DGU then?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Here we go.
Arlington, Texas. Arlington police responded to reports of a shootout at a car dealership in the evening at about 6:30 p.m. The report was that a man was shooting at the building. The man was a former employee who had armed himself with a rifle. He had recently been fired. I heard one of my friends say, "Hey, he has a gun." I look up and look him right in the face, and he has a blank, very calm face. He points the gun. It's a big gun like an AR. He turns and just shoots right at the window, said employee David Mann. Soon as he shot the window, of course, we run. Hear about 3-4 more shots. He then headed towards the service area, and one of the service advisors was armed and exchanged shots with the gunman. When he turned away from the building, he was confronted by police officers. He walked toward the officers, still carrying the gun, and was shot by police. The only person who was injured was the gunman. He has been charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault against a public servant and 1 count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Additional charges could be filed pending the outcome of the investigation.
I'm wondering if there might be just a touch of media bias in here. It was a big gun, like an AR or something.
On the other hand, if I worked in a car dealership and sees some guy shooting the windows out with a rifle, I think anything bigger than a cricket is going to look huge to my eyes. So
Most likely, yeah.
I think that's the adrenaline bias. Before the media ever got to it, John, what do you think?
Well, I'm actually kind of surprised and very heartened to see that one of the service advisors was armed. Usually many employers are adamant that their employees cannot be armed while they're at work. And in this case, there was an employee that was armed, traded shots, probably kept him away from the building as a result. And then he turns towards police with the gun in his hand, stupid move, and gets shot.
Let me get a couple of comments in here real quick. Spartan 6 says, it's almost as if citizens need to have some way of defending themselves because DAs won't keep criminals locked up. Gee, you think? I'm right there with you, Spartan 6. And this one from Jim Rawls says, that narration is annoying. My opinion, better than I could do, but geez, I would much rather hear you guys. And why is that showing as Yehuda? It shouldn't be. It should be Charlie up there. After my stroke, I suck at reading aloud. And I'm not that great at speaking extemporaneously. I don't know if a lot of other people say that we should go back to, I'm going to put it just to the people who are watching us live. If you would rather we dump the narration, the AI narration, I will. It's less stressful for me, but we'll go back to the other way. The second thing about that is that I don't know. Let's. I want Rob. I want you. You've got a comment here about this DGU.
Right. Sort of my nightmare is, the guy had it stuffed in a drawer, and therefore he's walked away from it a lot rather than having it in a holster. Mm-hmm. Also, okay, suppose you've just defended your coworkers. Awesome. You're not done. You can't worry about who was shot, because I would guess you're creeping out of the service department so you can look into the showroom and this guy can come back. What you want to avoid is, hey, police, there's a guy in the showroom with a gun. You don't want to be confused with that guy. So at some point you put your gun down, meaning you're not pointing it out into the darkness. Hopefully you reholster it, but yet keep your hand on it, because this may not be over. You don't know. What a busy time. Even if you're standing still, you're making a lot of decisions. I hope you've thought about what to do, because it's a hard situation to try and reason your way through. Any other comments? I'm done.
I want to say, John, it was Texas. Hopefully someone would be armed. I'm kind of shocked that this guy missed all of his targets. Like we often say that bad guys don't practice, and it appears this guy didn't practice, which I guess is a good thing, as it turns out. But I'm also shocked how come people that go in someplace and shoot up a building, shoot up a business, don't get charged with attempted murder. They have all these other charges, but they don't have attempted murder. How come that never, if you're shooting at someone, boom, it should be attempted murder, and then stack everything else on top of that? Why does that never end up being a thing? So I went back here. Aggravated assault against a public servant, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. No attempted murder, and it could be attempted. It could be 12 counts. I mean, it depends on how many people that were in the building, in the service area, who were in the showroom. How come they don't get smacked with attempted murder on these things?
And I got to say, one more thing I want to add here is good on the police officers, because personally, if I'm wearing a badge and you turn towards me and you're carrying an AR, you get one drop the rifle, and maybe a half a second after that to actually comply with that order. And these officers at least had enough discipline to not fill this guy full of 85 shots.
I want to amplify what Charlie said. Okay, this guy shoots at a window. A window's not a backstop. That's literally, he put a round up in the air, mailed to whom it may concern. That's felony negligence. Wow.
And to parlay that, we say all the time that if you fire a round in self-defense and you miss your intended target, you should assume there's a lawyer attached to that bullet. This guy just went into a car dealer and shot up all over the place. It's attempted murder. And what about, destruction of property and all the other charges? Like, how come they don't throw the books at him?
Yeah. I know in North Carolina we have a charge called assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, which sounds just like this aggravated assault, but I've always thought the same thing. If you had the intent to kill, why isn't it attempted murder?
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to our final DGU here, and this one out of Midwest City, Oklahoma.
Midwest City, Oklahoma. Once again, we return to the ever-continuing saga of estranged husbands or boyfriends behaving badly. The ex-wife was at her new boyfriend's home when the estranged husband kicked down the door, finding the wife and boyfriend inside. The homeowner boyfriend told police the man started shouting at him Spanish, then charged him. He retreated to the bedroom and shut the door. He retrieved his pistol from the dresser and fired a single shot at his attacker as he entered the room. The attacker ran from the room, leaving a blood trail and a smear of blood on a vehicle parked in the driveway. The former husband suffered non-life-threatening injuries. He had called the ex-wife more than 170 times on that day. He also had an active warrant out of a different county for domestic violence.
Right, and some that didn't make it into that narration is that, and here's the example of why I don't read loud, read live. The attacker ran from the room, leaving a blood trail and a smear of blood on a vehicle parked in the driveway. He later collapsed on a neighbor's lawn. No one else was hurt. I'm gonna steal Rob's thunder, and I can already feel him typing this, even though he's not got it out yet. And that I really wish this guy had his firearm on him in a holster. That would have negated having to retreat to a bedroom, get into the underwear drawer, get under the underwear to get the firearm out. Much quicker 2 to 3 second untrained draw stroke than a 2 to 3 minute draw stroke or let's be honest, 30-second draw stroke getting to the bedroom and getting in that drawer.
One of the things that came up in a class that I was teaching recently is somebody asked me, what about storing a firearm in their house? Can they keep it loaded? Where should they keep it? And I give them the whole POGO spiel. I say, look, me and my friends live by what we call POGO, pants on, gun on. And if you see us with pants on, we've got a gun on. But if you see us without pants on, we still might have a gun someplace. maybe in a shirt pocket, right? Maybe stuffed in our underwear. It's interesting to me, and I think it's a progression that people take is, what do I do? How do I get a gun? How do I buy a gun? How do I shoot a gun? How do I learn about it? How do I learn about self-defense? And then how do I learn about protecting my home? And as a guy that's a handgun guy, my goal was to carry a gun. And it was only 6 or 7 years ago when I said, you know what, I'm going to carry a gun every place it's legal for me to carry. So it's not an issue to keep a gun nearby or have one on me as soon as I walk out of the house. But for new people, this is obviously a new idea, and it changes the mindset.
Okay, I've got 2 comments I've got to get in.
Here we go.
First of all, I'm gonna get to this one first. Jim says, I'm late joining tonight. Been at the local gun shop fighting the urge to panic buy 5.56 after the Lake City announcement. I stayed strong. And let me go over here. And I stayed strong and only left with a box of 12 gauge. Good on you, man. But, pick up some 5.56 as well. And then the next comment.
Here we go.
From Dana. Here we go. He says, I don't want to know where Charlie's storing that gun.
So like the potato in the swim trunks at the beach, it goes in the front, right?
Okay.
You could be wearing a bathrobe is what I'm thinking.
Well, I'm reading the story, and we've had enough DGUs with exes kicking in the door to get to the ex-wife with the new boyfriend. How do you holster if you have no clothes on? I mean, I can imagine an angry ex coming in on the former wife and her new boyfriend while they're engaged in intimate activities.
Well, I will say this. I am a big practitioner of pants on, gun on. Oh, by the way, I am wearing pants on. I'm wearing pants right now, and you're welcome. But there's also, throughout our house, are staged several ready seed dispensers. And there's, even if I am, and I have here I go oversharing, I have a habit of not always getting dressed right away when I get up in the morning. But I'm never more than a step or two away from something I can use should there be a very loud bang at the front door. One other thing I just thought about with this story, they had to know something may happen. The bad guy called, the ex-husband called the wife, the victim, 100 and how many? 170 times?
170 times. Yeah.
That day. They had to know something may be happening. And yeah.
I just did the math on that, and I just picked 8 hours. That's 21 times an hour for 8 hours.
Yeah. Every 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit excessive.
All right.
And I mean, let's face it. He's wanted for domestic violence. It sounds like the husband was not necessarily an upstanding citizen with a good temper. The ex, I'm certainly not blaming the ex-wife, but she certainly could have realized with 170 phone calls that it might be time to put your pants on.
Very much.
Well, I'm
so.
going to say that the ex-wife could have gone to the new boyfriend's home seeking protection. She knew the guy called her 170 times, and she's going to somebody's to be with someone who she thinks will protect her.
That very well could be.
Absolutely. All right, let's take our final break. When we come back, we're going to discuss what we've been doing in the media, and we'll shut the show down. We'll get to that right after we hear from JPFO. Right back, right after this.
It all failed before. Alcohol prohibition brought us organized crime, and no less alcohol. Drug prohibition brought us murderous, no-knock, wrong house raids.
Police! Search warrant!
No, wait! The crack house is next door!
Now gun prohibitionists want laws to lead us down that same path. Don't Americans ever learn? Just ask yourself, isn't government the only beneficiary of police-state policies? Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. Information available at jpfo.org.
All right, we are back. This is the final segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by nobody at this present time. I'm sorry, often saying it. Yeah, presented by me. Or us, yes. Final segment, Rob, we're usually at this point, we start talking about what we've been doing with media. What's been going on over at Slowfax, man?
a majority of the Democrat attorney generals in the United States told the Ninth Circuit that you need to be disarmed. They said it's vitally important for the state to disarm honest citizens who obey the law. These Democrats, both the attorneys general and the Democrats who elected them, in many cases they're governors and legislators as well, they're elitists who live in their own little world, divorced from reality. That article is called Killing You Softly. Democrat luxury beliefs cost lives. My articles are up at Clash Daily and at OpsLens. You can see them first at my blog, slowfacts.wordpress.com. John, what's new at your blog? No lawyers, only guns and money.
Our interview last week with Yehuda Reimer got me thinking about the parallels with the Pulse nightclub shooting. Both that and the attack on Israel have resulted in a generally disarmed group now wanting to learn more about firearms. I have suggested that we need, and I just made the name up, an Operation Gideon's Trumpet to help our Jewish friends learn more about firearms, just like Operation Blazing Sword did for the gay community. Finally, and this is off topic, but the U.S. State Department has chartered a cruise ship to take American citizens from Israel to Cyprus. And from there, they have to figure out a way to get home on their own. In exchange for being evacuated, these citizens will have to sign a promissory note to the U.S. government to repay the government's expenses. This being a family show, I will refrain from the adult language I used when I first read that. That and more at onlygunsandmoney.com.
All right. Charlie.
All right. Last week, I had a writing shotgun with Charlie with Phil Schreier from the NRA Museum. He's the director there. And I went to the NRA Museum this summer and had a chance to interview him. Today, I actually wrote an open letter to Air Mariano, who is the Massachusetts Speaker of the House. Like I said earlier, the 4420 became 4607, and I believe they're voting on it on Wednesday. So I saw some posts where someone said you should write to these people. So I sat down and penned a letter, and I ended up sending it to a couple friends, and one of my friends said I should submit it. I should turn it into an article and send it to News 2A. So you can find the open letter to Speaker Mariano on news2a.com. And then this Wednesday, Matt Mallory and I will be doing a live show from 8 to 9 p.m. on our YouTube channels, and we're going to have Gabby Franco on as our guest. I think that's all that I got going on. Paul, what's been going on with you, sir?
Rebuilding a studio, man. This thing has been down to the very, I didn't tear off excuse me.
Didn't peel the paint, but it was close.
Yeah, exactly. I did not take the walls down to bare wood, but everything else came out of here, and I rebuilt my entire setup. So, and that's taken me several days to do because I want correct cabling so it doesn't look like a mess when you look at my desk. I want everything situated nicely. And I'm even, as we're on the air, as you can see, the green screen behind me as I'm adjusting light as I'll even put me solo up on the screen. I'm adjusting light around me, and I've still got some more adjusting to do to the lights. But I'm trying to get things to look as they did before I left to go down to Gun Rights Policy Conference here almost a month ago. So, but everything about this new studio and the system I've got here is so much better than the way I had it set up before, and I'm really excited about going forward with this. So,
Paul, are those new parts or are those old parts in a new configuration?
the computer I'm speaking to you on, computer I'm using to run the broadcast that the microphone is hooked up to, is a brand new $3,500 ouch computer.
Whoa.
Wow. The everything else here is repurposed. I have not got my my professional audio board hooked up to it yet. Right now I'm still speaking off a USB microphone. I do have some broadcast microphones I'm going to be bringing in and setting up in the next few days. I'm hoping by Wednesday I have that all done, but I mean, let's face it, the older computer that I had, it's still a fairly fast computer, but it was starting to show its age. It was the absolute state of the art when it was bought, and it's starting to show its age a little bit. It was the computer I used at GRPC this year, and that's going to be its swan song. It'll be retired here in probably another few days. So I've got files on it I've got to get off and get into the new computer before next Sunday, when, again, open secret, I do Eye on the Target radio video production for Amanda. And next Sunday, she's going to be going back to doing a live show, and I've got to have the new computer ready to run with all the files on the old computer. So that's what's going on with me. I'm going to say, do please, if you are a member of Facebook and you're so inclined, do look us up. We have a Facebook listeners group. Look that up on Facebook by going to Facebook and searching for Polite Society Podcast Listeners. And do please come join me and Rob on Wednesday and me and Alex Uli on Friday for Polite Society News. That'll be at 7 p.m. Central Time. Again, the only time zone that matters. And Sunday night at 7 p.m., I plan on attempting to do the new weekend show is going from Saturday to Sunday, and it's going to be a week in review show. So please do come join me for that Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time, assuming I'm able to get that thing booked filled. That does wrap up another episode of the Polite Society Podcast. For Amy, Dana, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, Carrie Ann, and Rob.
Until next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, we are clear of the recordings.
Paul, you told me you wanted the Wednesday evening to start on the 25th. Do you want me to back that up a week to this Wednesday, the 18th?
You know what? I misspoke on the air, dude. And we are not clear of the broadcast yet. Let me pull my calendar up because I think it is important to clarify.
Well, let's get clear of the broadcast first.
Which is the right button? Yeah. This coming Wednesday is Mike Piwowarski. So if you're watching us live, come join me Wednesday night with Mike Piwowarski, and I am going to kill the streams now. I will see everybody.